their earwax deep up against their eardrum using a Q-tip, or as they're known in the UK, a cotton bud. So this is patient 1, and we're in their left ear, and you can see the indentation where I am now with the suction probe. That's where the cotton bud really pushed this against the eardrum. There was actually an indentation in the wax itself. The wax is quite dry, as you can see. They have got a very narrow ear canal as well, so there's very little room to play with. A fine end gauge, because they've got a narrow ear, just wouldn't be powerful enough, so we have to use a standard Zollner suction probe here. So I can see there's a bit of this compacted wax at the roof superiorly to the ear canal, so I'm just trying to loosen this and bring this down. When you've got lodged earwax like this, the idea is just to, well, in most earwax cases, if truth be told, is you want to loosen it, elevate it, retract it from the canal walls to mobilise it. And once you've mobilised it, you can then slowly bring it forwards. And you can see there's a lot of dead skin, keratin that's coating this plug of wax, and this keratin is dead skin from the ear canal. So the skin that lines the ear canal, as it dies and sheds, it should naturally move sideways. And in this case, it's just engulfed itself around this really dry piece of wax. And you can see these slow movements I'm using forwards and backwards, up and down. And I've managed to extract it from the ear. So there's still a bit of wax, you can see it's still really stuck onto the eardrum. And I'm still using a standard Zollner suction probe because a fine end is just not going to be powerful enough. And I'm just remove some of the wax off the posterior tympanic membrane, so the back part of the eardrum. And you can see that's visible now. Now I'm using a fine end because we're approaching the anterior recess. So about a half a centimetre away from the eardrum, the ear canal narrows and then widens, and it creates two recesses. One inferiorly where we are at the moment, it's like a little basin, a little trench at the bottom of the eardrum, and one anteriorly, so in the case of the left ear, to the left-hand side of the ear canal. There's a little cave there, hidden cave, and quite often you can get wax, dead skin that's trapped and impacted, especially if it's been pushed in. And you can see there's a lot of dead skin here. We're just going to be careful, so I don't want it to clarinet. Fortunately, with the fine end, it's not clarinetting. So clarinetting is when skin violently flaps at the tip of the suction probe. So when it's trying to suction it, and it emits a very loud, high-frequency squeal. It's very, very noisy. And I'm just trying to manoeuvre this out of the anterior recess using the fine end suction probe. And you see there's very little space, even with a fine end, to work with. So you really need steady hands to remove this. I'm just going back in, just straightening the ear canal using the endoscope, and slowly but surely I'm just using little wriggles. And I've actually dislodged that now from the anterior recess, so when I go back in now it should be a lot easier to remove. There we are. So it's quite a significant amount of wax that got lodged in the anterior recess of the eardrum. It's fully visible. You see just really how narrow it is. Because it wasn't clarinetting, I'm just going back in. There's still a bit of wax in the inferior recess, just hiding away behind the skin. So as I detach the skin, the wax should come off with it. See, it's actually coming off the eardrum as well, the skin. So the patient's not done any long-term harm to their ear canal or eardrum, but I have advised to avoid putting anything in their ear, not just a cotton bud, but avoid putting fingers in the ears and other objects to scratch the ear. So that's patient 1. This is the second patient. It's a similar and familiar story. Again, use Q-tips, and once more, the ear canal's really narrow. So both of these patients have got really narrow ear canals. They've done well to even insert a cotton bud in there. You can see how much space the standard Zollner suction probe takes up in this patient's ear canal. And again, we're just trying to loosen this off the canal walls. A lot of dead keratin around the edge. You can see that that's the paler white skin just around the periphery. The core's a bit darker. That's the earwax. And again, I'm just lifting it down from the roof of the ear canal. This is why an endoscope's so good, because we've got this wide field of view where we can visualize everything in almost one shot. With other methods of visualizing the ear, it's a lot more narrow, and some techniques it's just a lot less magnified as well. So an endoscope, in terms of the view, there's quite It's quite unique. There's nothing quite like it. Again, I'm just trying to lift this plug of wax. You can see it's enveloped by this dead skin, this yellow outer layer. You can see the skin's just detached itself. And when it's lodged, because of this narrowing, this isthmus that I made reference to earlier, quite often the wax that we're removing off the eardrum, it's the diameter is larger than the narrowing, so it's a real struggle bringing it through, but we managed there. But just like the first patient, we still got a bit of wax really embedded on the anterior recess and also inferior recess. I'm just going back in. There's some debris that the suction probe caught as I was entering the ear, so just using the endoscope to stretch the ear wide open. And again, I'm just using the full Zollner here because I need that extra power because it really is lodged, and just lifting it up and away. You can see I lifted it through that narrowing. So the patient's eardrum is fully visible now. So I'm just going to go back in with a fine end gauge, just going to mop up around the edge. This is all just dead skin. Just slowly lifting it off the ear canal wall. So it's quite a bendy ear as well. It veers off to the right and back to the left, so you've got a natural S-bend, a chicane in the ear canal. We've just got some dead skin on the anterior canal wall, and this is the base of the ear canal, so I'm just hovering over, being very gentle. There we are, so nice healthy eardrum, happy client. You can now hear again. Just some